Welcome back. All right, so today I want to talk about offsides because we're going to talk about offsides. Now, I'm not going to talk about it in terms of the specifics with the Cale Makar goal. The NHL has explained the ruling. Former referees have talked about the ruling and why it was ruled that way and how, yeah, this is the ruling, even though it's the linesman make the call, right? It's the linesman to make that call, and they would know all the rules with the offside and what does or doesn't constitute an offside. But I think it's insane. So first off, there's too much gray area with the offside. The second thing is, offside is one of those oddities during a game where there's a lot of times they whistle a play down for offside. You'll see the player complain, and I'll be watching and saying, that didn't look offside to me. And vice versa, where as soon as the entry's made, I'm like, yeah, that play's offside. But then the defending team clears the puck, so it doesn't matter. So in most plays where there is or there isn't an offside, and it might be a little controversial, 99 times out of 100, I don't think we're talking about it. And linesmen are human, and so they're going to make mistakes here and there when it comes to calling offside. So I don't worry too much about it. But again, there are times where I'll watch the play, a team might get a really good press out of it, and in my head I keep thinking, this play's offside, so I'm taking notes, but the play's offside, so if a goal's scored here, it doesn't count. But then, again, the defending team clears it, doesn't matter. And I don't write that down. That's not something in all of my note-taking. I don't write that down with play looked offside, play looked offside. Not getting into that. But there are some options I've seen online, so I'm going to go through them, because, again, these are options I've seen people say. One is to abolish offside, which also could involve taking out the blue line, the idea that you'd have 2 zones instead of 3. The one thing that abolishing offside, you can't, and in my mind, I don't think that'd be a popular option, is you would have guys cherry picking badly. One of the reasons for offside being there is just so you avoid the cherry pickers, right? You don't want a goalie coming out and going, all right, so if I just get around these guys, he's at the other end. And it really, I don't think that would positively impact the game. So abolishing offside, take out the blue line, however you want to look at it. I don't think that's a start. I think that's a non-starter, really. I don't think that's going to happen. And so while offside has not been consistent in the NHL, they have made many changes with the offside. For instance, just recently, you don't have to have your skate on the ice anymore. Your skate just has to be breaking the plane of the line in order to be considered onside, which I'm fine with. I think that's a nice rule change. But they've shown in very recent times they're willing to amend the rule. And I wouldn't be surprised if they amend it. Now, by saying amend it, I mean take some of the wording and just make it simpler. Because when we get into the delayed offside, you're into just it's too much. There's too much there. You have to be able to keep it as simple as possible. Because where people are getting mad is Cale Makar is entering the offensive zone. Nichushkin's tagging up and attempts to gain possession of a loose puck. It's ruled a loose puck because the puck's entered the zone. Makar's stick hasn't touched it yet. And they're saying the attempt to gain possession of that loose puck means the whistle should be blown immediately. I haven't seen it called that way. I haven't seen it where a player puts the puck into the other zone, the player's coming out, and they immediately blow the whistle. That's where you'd abolish delayed offside. If you took the delayed part out of it, yes, that play is blown dead immediately. As soon as Makar puts that puck in the other zone and Nichushkin's still there, you get rid of delayed offside, then that's gone. I do remember hockey before we had the delayed offside, and I seem to remember a lot of whistles for offside. Players do adapt, though, and I've talked about this with other rule changes. Players will adapt. I think if you did away with delayed offside altogether, I think it would take away a lot of the gray area. Yeah, you might end up with more whistles, but I think it would take out a lot of gray area. It would also take out the intentional offside versus the I didn't realize I was offside argument, because there are times where an intentional offside's called where I throw my arms in the air and go, how was that intentional? And vice versa, where a guy will touch the puck knowing darn tootin' well he's offside, and it's just outside the blue line rather than being in their own zone. And I'm like, really, that's an intentional offside. Why didn't they call it that way there? And there's no review for that, right? So I think there's something to be said for tinkering with delayed offside. I don't think they'll ever abolish it again, but there might be something to just tinkering with delayed offside. And again, the intentional offside the consistency would be nice, but linesman, human. And then the other option here would be to carry on with the rules as they are, don't make any change to the rule book, and continue to have these issues come up. There will never be a playoffs where we don't have a controversy. There will never be a regular season, where we don't have a controversy. One thing that I'm glad about with this play in particular that's causing this video to be brought in is I do remember other games where it was called that way. And so when they're on Hockey Night in Canada and they're talking about these other games, people are like, oh, those are obscure examples. I remember. And it stands out to me because I didn't know that rule either. And I didn't know that interpretation of the rule, which is the problem. It shouldn't be an interpretation. It should be black and white. It should be very clear. There shouldn't be that gray area. So changing the wording, I think, is the most likely way for things to go in the off season. The NHL does not change rules in midstream during the playoffs. They change them after the playoffs are done. I would not be surprised to see some of that gray area taken out. Because again, attempts to gain possession of a loose puck, it doesn't specify that a player has to be in the offensive zone, which is what Dave Jackson said. He says, no, Makar's at the neutral zone. So just take it out. Just because to me, attempts to gain possession of a loose puck, all right, let's take that to the ridiculous degree. The puck's in the offensive zone, and you've got a delayed offside where the linesman has his arm up. I'm charging down the ice. I want that puck. I'm at center ice. They blow the play down. I am attempting to gain possession of a loose puck. Right? So that's, and we haven't seen it called that. Can you imagine that? It's a delayed offside and they'd be like, well, this guy was charging, clearly intended to get the puck. So then you're getting into intention, which, as Jackson said as well, intent doesn't matter. Intent is gone. It's out the window. And I've said in recent videos, intent is the biggest problem I have when they talk about rules. Intent to injure is one. Intent to injure, I think, could be called more than it is. And there are times where it's called where I'm like, I don't know that he intended to injure the guy there. He just threw a big check. So arguing what's going through somebody's mind, difficult. So this whole, well, Cale Makar knew the rules, so he didn't touch the puck until Nichushkin tags up. At that speed, I don't think he was thinking that. But again, that's where Jackson says it doesn't matter. It's always been called that way. It's just so rare. It is so rare that you have that play and then the goal immediately thereafter. And then we can get into the discussion of whether or not players might have went, well, that play is offside, maybe including Smith, and they let up. And that's a problem that I've talked about before. You have to play to the whistle. How many times have we seen where a player's anticipating icing, and maybe it should be, so they let up. They slow down. Maybe they touch the puck and they just fling it because they're like, well, it's icing, so I'll just throw that around the boards. And then it's not icing. You've just thrown it to the other team, and suddenly it's in the back of your net. So I don't think offside's the only one that we can do a video like this on. I think icing at times, we've been able to have that discussion too. Although with icing, it's a little more clear-cut. I do prefer the hybrid icing that we have now to what we had before, where it was you just fly and whoever touches the puck first, that's your icing or not icing. I think that's insane. Now, does possession mean touch the puck? So this is something that I saw too, which was, well, he doesn't touch the puck. Yeah, but he's trying to get possession, or he's still in possession because, but here's the thing. I saw somebody mention right away that if you're not considered to be in possession because it's a loose puck, well, then you've got to call interference. No. And I'm saying no because keep in mind that with interference, they allow the puck to be gone for a certain period of time. So I think it's like a third of a second. I think it's supposed to be like a third of a second, that if you hit a guy within a third of a second, could be quarter of a second, after that puck's gone, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to call a penalty there. So in this case, that would fall under that, where it wouldn't have been interference if somebody hit Makar, because it's that gray area of he doesn't technically have the puck. Many times have we seen somebody miss stick handle a puck going in over the blue line? It happens a lot. Guys trip over the blue line. It's the weirdest thing. But interference calls could be a nightmare, sure, but I don't think so. I think, and again, this is where you've got to take the gray area out of the rule. So again, taking out the blue line, I don't think so. Abolishing offside, as romantical as the idea is, I can't see them doing it. Because then what you're doing is you'd have to have something making sure that it's not just end-to-end passes constantly. So you'd have to take out the 2-line pass. You'd have to go to 1-line pass again. And just personally, having watched the game where you could not pass from your own zone past the red line, that was considered a 2-line pass and that was called back. And now seeing the game where you are allowed to pass beyond the red line, I think it's a better game that way. I think it's a better game when you can go past the red line that way. And then the question, and I watched Chris Johnston on the SDPN there talking about whether or not we should have reviews. One thing, and I know my wife and I have talked about this at length when a hockey game's on, and they're taking all this time to see, okay, is he on the line? Is he not on the line? Oh, it's barely okay. They've got 4 different angles, and this angle definitively shows that just by this much, he's offside. I think that, and again, I understand that it's the rule and all that, but did the player who's this far offside gain an advantage by being half an inch offside? I would argue probably not. And in a lot of cases, it might be a winger who's a half an inch offside, who's off on the other side of the ice. And so we might have a 10-minute review to say, well, that guy was, 3 centimeters or an inch and a half ahead of the play. So yeah, we gotta call that back. And so I don't expect the reviews to ever change. I don't think the NHL ever decides not to review offside plays for obvious reasons, right? Because the last thing that we need right now in all this discussion is to then have people saying, well, hey, you thought that play was bad. This one was actually offside, and they weren't allowed to challenge it. And then the screenshot of a player being a centimeter and a half offside would be everywhere, right? In this day of social media and everybody having a camera and so many different camera angles of every play, there would absolutely be a camera that showed that actually that play was offside, that goal shouldn't have counted. And then you've got this whole other discussion too. Well, why can't they review that? And then should there be an allowance of a few inches where you don't review if it's within that? And then would guys be just trying to stay within that? And it can end up making things more complicated than they have to be. So I think that really, to me, the answer is simple. Make the rule simple. Make it so that we know by absolute certainty what is and isn't constituting an offside play. Because the NHL is consistent with this one. And I get that there's a lot of people that are mad and upset because it doesn't happen very often. But they've been very consistent in how they've called this. So, with all the gray area, I say abolish the gray area. I say make the rule simple. Sit down with Ray Ferraro. Have Ray Ferraro write up the rule. And just make it clear as day. And the attempt to gain possession of a loose puck, was Makar doing that? Well, yeah, he had the puck. But he didn't touch the puck. So, again, I don't think Makar gets an advantage because Natushkin hasn't tagged up yet. I don't think that, again, when they brought up the rule initially, very, very early on in the NHL's existence, I don't think that's what the spirit of it was. But that's not the point. The point is the rule itself, and I think the rule needs to be amended. So, for anybody watching this video, how would you amend the offside rule? How would you fix it? How would you make it different, or how would you call it different? So if the rule's fine, if you're going to argue the rule's absolutely fine as it is, how do you call it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And odds are this video is probably going to get some good legs under it and have some evergreen aspect to it because we will see this again. We will see this again. And as much as I'd like to see them take gray areas out of rules, just go through the rule book and just simplify it. And make sure that there's not so much verbiage in there that we can interpret it differently. You could read the rule one way, I could read it another. And I really think that's what's happening now, is that some people read it the same way the NHL does, and others don't. And here we are with that divide. And there's enough divide going on right now. So let's bring it together, get rid of the gray area. Come on, NHL, get on it. And I'm wearing my dude jersey because I'm trying to keep it cool, trying to keep it civil, trying to keep it nice, and keep the emotion out of it, and just discuss it. as it was meant to be. Let me know your thoughts, though, in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your rates for you just happened upon this video. And I did not wear the referee's jersey because this is a linesman issue. Somebody asked Dave Jackson, well, how many of these did you call? And he said, none. I was a ref, which I thought was perfect answer. But hey, let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.